Backstroke is usually the most looked down upon out of the 4 competitive strokes. Some people consider it to be a recovery stroke, the boring, resting stroke, while others think that it's completely wacky swimming upside down while you can't even see where you're going. Yeah, backstroke has its particularities. It can be tough, crazy, and fun. And if you can master it, I guarantee you'll become a better overall swimmer, even in the other strokes. So let's dive in.
Men raced backstroke for the first time in the Olympic Games in 1900. For women, though, backstroke wasn't added to the racing lineup until 1924. Initially, swimmers did backstroke with a breaststroke kick and moved their arms at the same time. Eventually, the stroke evolved into what we see today: one arm stroke at a time, plus a flutter kick and lots of rotation from side to side. In the 1930s, Australian swimmers started experimenting with bending their arms during the underwater portion of the stroke. And voila, they swam faster. At the time, most swimmers swam with a straight arm catch and pull. Other athletes quickly adopted what the Aussies were doing, and bent arm pulls became the norm, not just in backstroke, but in all 4 competitive strokes. We call this early vertical forearm these days. Backstroke is the only stroke where swimmers start in the water instead of diving off the blocks. They hop in, place their feet on the wall, grab onto special handles, and explode off the wall backwards, entering in Streamline. Over the years, backstroke rules have changed quite a bit. Until 1988, backstrokers could kick underwater as far as they wanted before they started swimming. But after American David Burkoff kicked a whopping 35 meters underwater on the first length of the 100 back at the 1988 Olympics, World Aquatics decided to impose a limit of just 10 meters underwater. These days, swimmers can go no more than 15 meters underwater before popping up, or they could get disqualified. In 1991, backstrokers were finally allowed to do flip turns when changing directions, which was a huge game changer. And in 2022, World Aquatics changed the backstroke rules yet again, allowing swimmers to fully submerge for the final 5 meters of their race. In the past, at least one part of the body had to be out of the water to avoid getting disqualified.
Okay, but how do you actually swim backstroke?
As with all other strokes, we'll begin with a nice, streamlined body position. You want your hips to be high in the water and your head to be in a neutral position. Your hips should float up close to the surface of the water. Think about keeping your belly button dry. This creates the best baseline for your stroke to start with.
I see so many swimmers who are struggling to get faster, and a lot of it just has to do with a poor body position. That means your hips are close to the surface of the water. The lower your legs are, the more drag you're going to create as you move, and therefore the slower you're going to swim. Now, generally, your body position will follow your head position.
Avoid looking at your toes. Keep that neck neutral and look at the sky.
One of my favorite drills to work on your head position is the cup on forehead drill. The way it works is you're gonna fill the cup halfway with water and rest it on your forehead. Start with a slight streamline kick and slowly progress to full backstroke strokes. Balance the cup in your forehead for as long as you can. That will make sure you're looking straight up the whole time.
And now let's get into the pull.
With a few quick fixes, you can increase the power and efficiency of your pull by a significant amount.
The backstroke pull is a little different. Your arm will exit the water thumb first. As you lift your arm, rotate your body away from that lifted arm. Then, make sure your hand re-enters the water pinky first and rotate toward that arm to reduce the drag your shoulders create. Pinky first is key. This hand position sets you up for a strong early vertical forearm catch. And it essentially turns your hand, wrist, and forearm into one giant paddle that can pull a ton of water. It's much easier on your shoulders than pulling with a straight arm.
Pulling with a straight arm isn't the right way to do it, and it's also going to be tough on your shoulders.
One last thing on the pull. Don't squeeze your fingers together. Instead, keep them semi-relaxed with a few millimeters of space between them.
It may seem weird, but believe me, that space can actually make you swim faster. To practice your catch and pull, try the double arm pull backstroke drill. Take both backstroke pulls at the same time, with the arms moving symmetrically. This drill will force you to have a shallower pull, keeping your body high in the water. Focus on maintaining a solid early vertical forearm with both arms. As your arms recover above the water, make sure your hands re-enter the water evenly and in line with your shoulders. Now to the kick.
Backstroke kick is a flutter kick, just like freestyle. My one piece of advice is to keep your kick simple. You don't need to kick like crazy or try to have the biggest kick in the pool. The wider your kick, the more drag you create. Try to keep your kick no more than about 18 inches wide. Think small and fast instead of big and slow.
You want to think about your kick in that you have 2 straight legs. Your legs are almost absolutely straight, your toes are pointed, and you have this really long surface area to pull the water with. When you kick, Your knees should only bend a little bit, but not too much.
If your knees are popping out of the water like crazy, you need to work on that knee bend. Your kick should be driven from your hips rather than from your knees. Think of your kick as a tool to help you maintain proper body position and drive your rotation. Now some notes on rotation. If you have a really strong kick, you'll probably be able to drive your backstroke rotation with your hips. If not, don't worry. Try driving your rotation with your shoulders instead. But know this, whichever rotation philosophy works for you, make sure you don't over-rotate. It's not about totally rotating from one side to the other, it's about reducing drag.
Now we can't talk about swimming faster without talking about Streamline. Streamline is potentially the most important word in swimming. It's the foundation for every single stroke. Streamline is also the fastest body position in the water because when you do it right, you have the least amount of drag. I mean, think about it. You're like a torpedo moving through the water. You're compact. You have no resistance. Now when you push off the wall, add in a few dolphin kicks and your push-off's gonna go even further. You don't wanna overdo your dolphin kick. Instead, keep it short and fast.
I didn't talk about breathing in this video, and can you guess why? You're right, backstroke is the only stroke where breathing is a breeze. Literally. You can catch your breath whenever you want without worrying about missing a stroke. Some backstrokers like to wear a nose clip, so if you want to try that, go for it.
Okay, one last thing. Backstroke is the only stroke that requires you to be entirely on your back, which raises the question, how the heck are you supposed to swim straight? I recommend working on a few things. First, find something overhead to focus on, like a seam in the ceiling. If you swim outside, good luck. Try to find a cloud or something to keep you on track. Next up, make sure you're pulling with equal strength in both arms. An even pull will keep you going straight. And lastly, try to keep your head from moving too much. Maintaining a neutral head position will help keep the rest of your body in line too.
Now let's take a look at how Ryan Murphy, one of the best swimmers in the world, applies all that technique that we just talked about.
When we take a look at his backstroke technique, I want to start underneath the water. He's doing a lot of things right. He's swimming with a lot of power. Let's look at his hand entry. I'm going to use an arrow to describe that. His arms are entering the water at shoulder width. That's 11 and 1 o'clock if you're using the arms of a clock. This is super important because if you take a look at how his hand is positioned to catch the water, he's basically already setting up a pinky first entry, and that is allowing him to initiate that early vertical forearm, which yes, early vertical forearm applies in the backstroke as well. And if we just move a couple of frames over, we can see what that early vertical forearm looks like. He's gonna bend the elbow and power. I think we're actually gonna see it in this side a little bit easier. Yeah, so you can see right there what he's doing with his hand. His forearm is like a paddle, and he is just pulling the water. Now, one thing I really want to show you guys is the head position. So he is looking up, right? He's looking at the sky, but in fact, his head position is actually not that flat. He's really powering through the water. He would actually benefit if he looked more up, because right now it looks like he has an angle. I think we see it in the next shot. You can see what I'm talking about. Let's look at the angle of his head. So if we look at his eyes are actually looking, would you guys agree that's a fair arrow of where his eyes are looking? Let's put an angle to his head position relative to the water, right? That's the line. And there we go. Now I know it looks like 90 degrees, that's 90 degrees to his face, but the water line is actually more like that. So maybe he's 65 degrees, or yeah, 66 degrees. So remember, the body line is right here. This is the body line. Now I know it's not perfect, this is the angle and everything, but if he were to lift his eyes a little bit more up and look at the sky, look at the ceiling, basically his entire head, instead of that's his head position, his head needs to be in that line. What's gonna happen is his hips are gonna go higher. Now again, Ryan Murphy is a very strong swimmer, so he's really powering through the water, on top of the water. If you're not Ryan Murphy, which you're not because you're watching this video, and if he is watching this video, awesome, what's up, Ryan? You wanna make sure that you're lifting your hips up as much as you can, and your head position is how you control that.
Now that we've taken care of all these technique discussion, we need to put it in practice. And if you don't work, it's not gonna work. Backstroke is equal parts challenging and relaxing, It just depends on how you approach it. I didn't talk about turns or starts in this video, but don't worry, we have dedicated videos breaking down each of them.
Now, if all this stuff seems like a lot, it's because it is, but you don't have to make it that complicated. Work on technique, improve little by little, and you'll see amazing results.
Check out the drill down video series on this channel for all the tips, tricks, and drills you need to improve your technique in all 4 strokes.